How's it going, everyone? This is Aaron Hilliard for Mushroom Wonderland. On this episode, we're going to go out into the woods and look at some mushrooms that I've found growing trail side over the past mushroom season. This is a bunch of just kind of odds and ends mushrooms that I've came across. So these mushrooms may or may not be growing right now in the forest. I found them earlier in the season, and so I'm just going to compile a whole bunch of clips of different mushrooms and describe them for you and maybe help you to understand what you're seeing in the woods. Can you eat them? Are they deadly? Are they hallucinogenic? Let's find out on this episode of Mushroom Wonderland. Make sure to hit subscribe. Let's go into the woods.
Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland.
Check this out. These ones, Cortinarius violaceus. So look how purple they are, and these are beautiful. Also known as the violet cort. These are ectomycorrhizal, growing with the conifer trees here. These ones actually happen to be like growing out of the base of this super old stump. That was no doubt coniferous, but they're attached to the roots of some trees around here, and these leave off a really orange spore print, and they are. These are actually edible, but they're very fuzzy and very photogenic. So always excited to find these. Here's a mushroom that I want to show you guys about because it's a wood-loving saprotrophic mushroom growing on a stump here. Nothing really too cool about it. Kind of looks like sulfur tuft, but I can tell it's not because it's got this orange spore print, this orangey kind of deep red spore print rather than that dark purple brown that Hypholoma would have. So growing in clusters like this on wood, it could very well be a type of Foliota. Those are a really common wood-loving saprobe that grow around here. But one way that the UV light, this 365 manta ray C8 UV light has come in handy for me is that it can actually help you to identify mushrooms. So I was torn between Foliota and Flammula, and so one way to tell is with this black light. When I point it at these mushrooms, they glow up super bright like a Hypholoma would, but Foliota don't do that. And so I know that Foliotas don't fluoresce like this, but I know Flammula does. So these are Flammula alnicola, one of the wood-loving saprotrophs that grow here. Kind of a handsome mushroom when they're young and they get kind of big and warped, but very fluorescent, really, really pretty if you can get an upshot and then, you can light filter it and stuff. Get awesome photos of these mushrooms, look like they're glowing in the dark. But yeah, Flammula versus Foliota, the black light will tell you the difference. Gunnar smells all these spores. Look at this beautiful fruiting of Hypholoma fasciculare or sulfur tuft. So they can be pretty impressive when they fruit like this. Very magical looking in this beautiful mossy forest. A bunch of Hypholoma. Yeah, sulfur tufts. Hypholoma fasciculare. Doing a good job eating this. I've seen this fruit multiple times this year. These are very fluorescent with a black light. And poisonous, one of the more toxic ones that we have here, grow in big numbers at the base of trees, kind of like armillaria or honey mushrooms. Sometimes people will find those sulfur tufts and then confuse them for honey mushrooms. So these mushrooms are pretty common on the trail side right now. Looks kind of like a little bit of a furry pancake, maybe. Yeah, it's got this tomentose texture. It's almost kind of fuzzy on top. And it really gets matted down after it really freshly rained, but when they're dry, they're actually quite fuzzy. And these grow in really deep coniferous woods like this. There's a lot of them out this year, right now. So I'll flip one of these over for you so you can see underneath. It's got very elongated pores. You see how big those pores are? So it's going to have an annulus or a partial veil, a ring zone right here. This protected that sponge while it was getting its spores all mature. But you know, that tomentose cap and all of these features together. This one is Suillus Lakey Eye. So Suillus, a pretty common genus of mushroom this time of year. And they're growing in big troops right now. And one thing that's interesting is another mushroom, Gymnopilus, will parasitize the mycelium of these Suillus Lakey Eye. So often you'll find these, and then right nearby you'll find Gymnopilus. That's actually a parasite on these. So these are edible, not really desired around here. In Eastern Europe, they dry them and powder them, put them into soups and stocks and things, and you could definitely do that. They're perfectly edible as much as any other edible mushroom. Just make sure to cook them. And, you know, I'm sure you'd be fine if you wanted to eat them. But just nobody really goes after them here. Gunner's having fun itching himself on these bushes. So, anyway, Suillus Lakey Eye. Let's keep moving. Alright, so here's a little flush of mushrooms. I have kind of a ruffly looking cap, pretty orange. And, you know, somebody might look at this and think, oh, there's a chanterelle, right? Kind of looks a little bit like a chanterelle might. And then let's flip it over. Yeah, the gills underneath are decurrent too. Look at that. So does that look like a little chanterelle to you? This is actually a false chanterelle. This is technically the false chanterelle. Hygrophoropsis aurantiaca. This one got these orange, but they're real gills. Chanterelle has like ridges or veins, but these actually have true gills under there, and they are this orange colored, but these are not a chanterelle. So non-toxic though, so if you accidentally ate these, it'd be fine, but they're really a lot smaller in size, even though they do get a little bigger than this. Chanterelles are typically a lot heftier, really thick white flesh that strings apart like chicken. This one, kind of a dainty, flimsy little mushroom. But Hygrophoropsis, your false chanterelle, you should know what these look like so that you know if you're picking the wrong thing. But here's a nice little troop of them growing right here, and you can set these up and take a nice little photo. It's always a nice little PSA of what a false chanterelle is. Come across a really beautiful agaricus, woodland agaricuses that are growing here. See right there? It's got that beautiful skirt. Let's take a look at this. Now, it could look like maybe a deadly amanita or something. Let me pull it up from the base all the way. All the way. Dang it, it broke. But look at that, pink gills. So amanita's got white gills. This has pink gills and chocolate brown spores. So this is in the genus Agaricus, related to your grocery store button mushroom. And these ones actually have a nice scent of almond extract or something, kind of like the Prince. So these are probably a really good edible woodland agaricus. I'm going to definitely take these and do a little bit more work on them to make sure I know what I'm dealing with here. But here's another nice young one. And yeah, nice. And then there's a couple of bigger ones back here. So woodland agaricus, these can be really good eating, related to your Prince and your portobello. These mushrooms are beautiful. Now, if they stain really bright yellow at the base where they're damaged, it's a bad sign. And if they have like gray scaling on top of the cap, also a bad sign. These ones don't have either of those. Plus they have this almond scent, which is usually an indicator of a good edible one. So beautiful agaricus. growing amongst a lot of Xeromphalina. These are growing everywhere, these little dark stemmed, beautiful little mushrooms, but I'm more interested in these right now. Definitely going to take some beautiful pictures, and you know, we're going to find out what species these are. But I love to find a Woodland Agaricus that is in really good shape like these are. Beautiful mushrooms, and will taste kind of like your grocery store button mushroom, but even more flavorful because they're wild and just living with all this amazing organic carbon. So I'm excited about these. They make for beautiful photos too. Right here is an interesting mushroom that you should probably know if you live in the Pacific Northwest. Commonly called the cracking red-cap bolete, I guess. This one is actually in the genus Xerocomelus, so it's got this cracked looking surface on top, often with kind of pinkish reddish hues underneath, and some definite pinkish hues right there on the margin. And then we've got this reddish color here on the stipe. You can see that reddish blushing, and it kind of fades up. And then you see that reddish color on the edge of the cap right there. That's kind of a cool feature of this mushroom. This one in the genus Xerocomelus. I'm going to pull this up so you can see the sponge underneath. So this has pretty big pores, but not quite like a Suillus. Really thin margin, but you can definitely tell the difference between this and a Suillus, right? This one's got a little more of an umbonate cap. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit meatier. This one is called Xerocomelus diffractus, the red cracked cap bolete, I guess. It's got this kind of frosty mycelium on the stipe, then really red at the bottom of the stipe, working its way up, and to this spongy pore surface. Now, if I crack the cap, these will bruise blue. Some of them very extremely, and some of them not so fast at all. This one's going to take its time a little bit, but it will turn bluish green colored, and this is indicative of the diffractus. So Xerocomelus diffractus, non-toxic, this mushroom. You could eat it, but it's actually pretty closely related to your Zeller's bolete. See all that blue bruising? Yeah. So there you go. It's a pretty common one and a good one to be familiar with. Nice. Came upon this thing that caught my eye. Look at that. Orangey, red colored, yellow. This is a Hygrophoropsis. There's another one right here. And then what really caught my eye was right here. All of these young Hygrophoropsis popping up right here. So Hygrophoropsis, really photogenic mushrooms, some of the prettiest mushrooms around. Not really edible. Nobody eats these. They've got a really waxy kind of texture going on. Look at that. Isn't that bizarre? I think one of the common names is a witch hat because of the shape of that cap, but really bright colored, really brightly red, and a big nice patch of them coming up right here. So I'm not sure the exact species of these, but when they're full, before they get really beat up by the bugs and stuff, they can be quite beautiful photogenic mushrooms. I like it. Don't find Hygrophoropsis every day here in Western Washington. They're a little bit rare, so kind of exciting. I like those. Right here we have a pretty common mushroom related to the wine cap, but this one, known as the Ambiguous Stropharia or Stropharia Ambigua, these have a dark purple brown spore print like psilocybe. Actually, psilocybe used to be in the genus Stropharia. This one's got a really nice veil protecting the gills. Those spores aren't quite mature enough yet to let that veil release. But underneath here, let me show you. I'm going to use a twig and just kind of open that up so that you can see underneath. is where the gills are. So it's going to produce some spores. This one probably won't, but there's a nice cluster of them right here. And these are edible. I don't know, a lot of literature says unknown, even though they're like super common. I can't hardly believe that people haven't tried these. And we would definitely know if they're killing people, because people would have wrote that down along the way. So they're probably safe to eat, but nobody really eats them. But Stropharia ambigua, related to the wine cap. So it might be a decent edible. If you try this, go ahead and leave it in the comments what you think about it. That'd be great. Right here I'm in kind of a cultivated area, sort of an urban, this is actually a park where they put down a lot of wood chips, but right here we have some interesting mushrooms. These ones known as the Shoehorn Oyster, or Hohenbuchelia. So looks like an oyster mushroom kind of, but growing kind of terrestrially, even though this is coming out of wood chips. Hohenbuchelia like to grow like this, out of the wood chips. Not necessarily on logs very often, but I often see them in wood chips, and so it looks a little bit like a shoehorn. So I'm gonna kind of gently flip this guy over so you can see it. You see that? So these are really interesting because they can be carnivorous. When they're running out of nutrients, they will create little traps to snare and poison nematodes. So just like Pleurotus species, a few other species do that too. But if they find nutrients are scarce in the soil, then they'll go ahead and take matters into their own hands and start snaring nematodes. I've also heard that if they sense nematodes are in the soil, they start to have these little mechanisms that kill them. They don't always have them, but in the presence of nematodes, they do. It's really bizarre. But the shoehorn oyster, you could eat these. They're not toxic, but nobody really eats them. They're really tough. Hohenbuchelia is a pretty beautiful terrestrial type pleurotoid mushroom. This stuff's called Xylaria, and when I brush it, it's gonna go poof, and you'll see all the spores. Ready?
Oh,
isn't that cool? I just let like a million spores go.
Crop dust.
Yeah, this is so cool. See all that? That's sporulation, just millions of spores. So Xylaria hypoxylon. These are a fungus. They kind of look like a lichen. These ones are doing really good. They're really tall. These ones are like, I don't know, 4 inches tall or something. Don't usually see them quite that tall, but man, making a lot of spores. So those are neat. Xylaria. Look at this beautiful mushroom growing right here on the side of the trail. This one, another one of the porcini clade. This one, Boletus fibrillosus. And it also has reticulation on the stem, just like a Boletus edulis or a porcini, but this one's got this dark velvety cap. Really, really good eating. This one's like picture perfect. Boletus fibrillosus, some people call it the chocolate porcini or the fib king. It's beautiful, so I'm gonna take it with me today after I take some nice photos of it. That's a cool mushroom. Boletus fibrillosus. Oh, wow. Look at them creamy stuffed pores. Reticulation, just like a porcini, but with a darker cap. Beautiful mushroom. Really good eating too. This beauty right here, another fib king. Boletus fibrillosus. Let's pull it up. Perfect shape. These just came up in the last couple of days, so gonna clean this one up, put it in my basket with all these other beauties. Finding a lot of awesome boletes out here today. That's a beauty. Look at these beauties. Hypholoma pecii, the bleeding tooth fungus. This one's really bloody. Looks like some kind of a Halloween thing or something like that. Just super bloody with this red guttation. These are gorgeous. Look at that. So rain will wash the guttation off, and they actually mature pretty quick, and they'll stop having this guttation, and then they just kind of turn black. But right now, man, these things are primo. Really amazing. My wife's pointing at another one right here. Oh yeah, that one's got some pretty good little blood on it.
It looks scabby.
Mm-hmm. So these are all like metabolites. Look at all of the...
one.
Oh yeah, that one's good. I'm dropping needles into the blood. And look at, there's a bunch more. So, you know, people spend their whole life trying to photograph these mushrooms, but if you're in the right area, you know, they're really actually pretty common here.
I'm gonna touch it.
Look at that. How cool is that? She's gonna touch it. You wanna lick it?
Ew, it looks like blood.
Should I lick it?
Do it.
See that? Let's see what this blood tastes like.
Is it delicious?
It's actually really, really mild.
It tastes like cinnamon.
Sometimes they can be really spicy. Oh, it's kind of bitter actually.
Nope.
It's kind of bitter this time, but let's try it one more time. You gotta taste something twice. I've had them before and they were really spicy. It's just a little bit bitter right now, but it definitely tastes like some medicine in there. So these supposedly have anticoagulant properties, so that could be really useful for blood work and stuff like that. But so I don't know, if you are like anemic or something, maybe if you lick a bunch of these.
Should there be a disclaimer on this one?
Yeah, these aren't toxic, so this is safe. One time a TikTok video was removed from my TikTok. Yes, I do have a TikTok at Mushroom Wonderland with a 0, but wonder with a 0. But they pulled it down saying this was dangerous content, but it's not toxic, so. Just kidding, it's fine. There's several kind of growing in here, all kind of in the brush back there, but I picked a few to take a nice photo. But look at these, beautiful Lactarius, kind of a tan colored top and very amethyst colored gills. These ones probably Lactarius bicolor. I'm going to collect these to have them sequenced, but these are known as deceivers because they can look pretty different within the species, you know, just as they grow and change. But Lactarius amethysto occidentalis, probably more purple on top. So this one, more of a tan color on top, more of a purple color underneath. And they call these Lactarius bicolor. And these are a decent edible, I guess. I don't really know anybody that eats them, but I heard they're okay to eat. Definitely not toxic and very photogenic. I always like running into these. Lactarius might be my favorite genus of mushrooms. I don't know why. I just really think they're pretty. So I'm going to take some photos of this and take them to get them sequenced. Pretty nice. So these mushrooms that I've happened upon right here on the side of the trail, there's quite a few growing out of the leaf and needle duff here. They're pretty robust. And these are a beautiful mushroom. Some of the things that I noticed right away is the lack of a partial veil. You know, there's nothing protecting these gills that I can see. The gills do not attach to the stipe. Another thing I notice is this kind of tapered stipe. It kind of gets big and then sort of tapers at the bottom. This is indicative of a genus that's really popular edible, the matsutake mushroom. But these are definitely not matsutake. These ones are in the genus Tricholoma, I believe. So some of these tricholomas are a little bit obscure. These ones happen to grow out here and get really big, and they look kind of like a pancake or something. Beautiful coloration on top. But you know, some of these tricholoma are like the Cortinarius. They're a mycorrhizal mushroom and sometimes hard to pin down the exact species. These ones are probably not any good to eat. So I'm going to take one for science and study it. But beautiful mushroom and very nice looking tricholoma. Right, so this right here is really a pretty cool mushroom. This one we call the hawkswing. And I guess it could kind of look like a hawkswing. You know, if you look at that thing up close, it's got really scaly top. But what's even more interesting is that you flip it over, and underneath it, it has teeth instead of gills or pores. It has little teeth, kind of like a hedgehog mushroom. So this mushroom is known as Sarcodon. Sarcodon imbricatus is the one that we have around here, I believe. And so this mushroom is an okay edible, although it's a little bit bitter. A lot of people say that it's the bitter hedgehog. And I've know people that have pickled this, and it can be really good pickled. It's totally non-toxic, so you could definitely throw these in the soup pot, and they sure are pretty and really hard to mistake for anything else. You know, really anything that has teeth underneath is going to be safe. Some are better than others, but the hedgehog mushrooms are delicious edibles. These are okay, definitely not choice, but you can eat them, and they're very cool. Looks like a hawk's wing on top, looks like little teeth on the bottom. Sarcodon imbricatus. Let's keep going. So right here, a type of Gymnopilus. So Gymnopilus, you know, some of them have that common name, the laughing Gym, because a lot of these will contain psilocybin, and so these look a bit different from your Hypholoma, which is right there. There's a lot of Hypholoma popping up around here. The Sulfur Tufts, they're everywhere, but these look pretty distinct. And these are Gymnopilus or Gymnopilus, and you can look here at the base for some bluing, some blue staining, and see if they might be an active species. This one doesn't appear to be. It's got them yellow gills, and growing on wood, always kind of this orangish yellow color with them yellowish gills. But Gymnopilus, not sure exactly which species this is, growing just kind of in this detritus and wood debris. Some of these are hallucinogenic, so slow down and look at them if that's what you're out here looking for, you know, if you're interested in that kind of a thing. Some of them that stain blue, like Gymnopilus luteifolius, that one really seems to like to grow in urban settings on old decking and stuff like that. These ones are way out here in the woods, but I imagine you could find luteifolius out here too. Here's a nice spread of the Galerina marginata. You can see a really young one. Look how big that partial veil is. And then as it opens up, the veil kind of disintegrates and disappears. Really nice example, a nice grouping of them. So they're very dangerous, and they appear to just be growing out of the ground here. But there's a lot of wood mulch kind of ground into it. And if you look at this caramel color. I mean, these could easily be confused for a Psilocybe cyanescens or Ovoideo cystidiata. They're very robust, very caramel colored, so you know, they also like to grow in similar habitats. So definitely familiarize yourself with these guys. Right here we have Lactarius rubitus, or the candy caps. These ones are mature. A lot of them are just really young, just barely starting to pop up. Oh, look at this, man. I'll come back in a few days. There's going to be just hundreds of them. But here's what your candy cap looks like, Lactarius rubitus. Whoops. Kind of dry looking on the cap. And, yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few keepers. Nice. Ooh. So, yeah. Nice. There's some beautiful candy caps. All right, this one's lactating. You can see that kind of milky color coming out of the gills there. It's a good indicator, along with that rough cap. kind of orange peel looking cap. Beautiful little mushrooms. Cool, what I found growing next to this stump. Beautiful example of Phaeolus schweinitzi, or Phaeolus schweinitzii, the Dyers Polypore. Growing here, real frosty looking, kind of looks like some sort of a pastry to me. They're furry and they're fuzzy, and they're really pretty when they're young like this. A lot of people are really after these because they are good dyers mushrooms, so you can dye protein fabrics with them. I talk a lot about that in other videos. And I hope to do an actual video on dyeing with mushrooms soon. But, you know, somebody would collect this to dye some fabric with, otherwise inedible. It's like a chunk of wood or something like that. Always growing at the base of a stump. And so I'm actually not going to take this one. It's a little young for me and I don't have plans to make dye with it right away, but I'm going to leave it. Take a look at these growing right here on the side of this trail right here, kind of coming out of the gravel. Very unique look. See this guy? Reminds me kind of like black licorice, and you can see that weird pitted, strange stem and this crazy looking cap. This is an ascomyte, kind of like a morel or a false morel. This mushroom produces spores a little bit differently than your regular cap and stem mushrooms. But this one, called Helvella vespertina, I think that's the coolest name. There's conflicting reports about edibility of these. I think the consensus is to probably avoid them. I've heard they can contain gyromitrin, the same thing that's in a gyromitra, the false morels. So there's a lot of other good edible mushrooms out there. You don't have to be eating these, but also known as the Elfin Saddle. Really cool. I think they're just beautiful, and definitely one of my favorite names, but these ones we'll probably leave behind. Somebody else can try them. I'm good. Just don't look that appetizing to me, so I'm gonna leave them there. Helvella vespertina. All right, everyone, thanks for joining on that episode. I hope that you go in the description, look at the links for all the other social media accounts and for the website so you can get yourself some Mushroom Wonderland merch. And until the next episode, much love, everyone. Peace out.